The sun dipped low over the dusty fields of Willow Creek, Tennessee, bathing the horizon in hues of orange and rose. A 16-year-old girl stood alone, her plaid shirt streaked with dirt, fists trembling at her sides. Her name was Ellie Harper, and her hazel eyes burned with a heat fierce enough to set the fields ablaze. Just a few yards away, 3 boys, broad, jeering, and mean, surrounded her twin sister, Sarah, who lay curled on the ground, her glasses cracked, her lips split. Their laughter cut through the air like blades, mocking Sarah for her quietness, her difference. Ellie's pulse pounded in her ears. The fools had no idea what storm they'd just stirred up, because Ellie Harper wasn't just a farm girl. She was a myth, a whisper among those who served in the world's deadliest ranks. And these boys had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Hey there, if you're new, don't forget to hit subscribe and join our storytelling family. You'll want to see what happens next. This wasn't just another evening in Willow Creek. The tiny town, with its single gas station and weather-worn barns, was the kind of place where secrets never stayed buried long. Ellie and Sarah Harper, the Harper twins, had grown up side by side, tending cows before sunrise and hauling hay until the sky turned gold. But while Sarah was gentle, shy, and always lost in a book, Ellie was wild, fierce, defiant, and unshakably protective. Folks in town called them the Harper girls, but few knew the truth behind Ellie's steel. At 18, she'd vanished. No goodbyes, just questions and rumors. Some said she'd enlisted, others whispered she'd died. The truth was far more extraordinary and far more dangerous. In 2010, Ellie left Willow Creek and the life she knew. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a weapon. At 22, after surviving brutal training that broke stronger men, she earned her place in Delta Force, the U.S. Army's most secretive and lethal unit. Her code name, Viper, a shadow among shadows, she infiltrated war zones, dismantled enemy cells, then disappeared without a trace. Her missions erased from record, her name wiped from existence. To the world, Ellie Harper was a ghost, but to Sarah, she was still the sister who once braided her hair and chased fireflies under the Tennessee moon. 6 years had passed, and Ellie had come back, not for good, only for a week to check on Sarah and their aging parents. She had kept her return quiet, slipping into farm work as if she'd never left, yet trouble had a knack for finding those who tried to disappear. That afternoon, as she was mending a fence near the far edge of their property, a scream cut through the air. It wasn't merely a noise. It tore at her like a knife. Ellie dropped her tools and bolted, her boots thudding across hard-packed earth, instincts already surging. When she reached the clearing beneath the old oak, she saw them, Tommy Grayson and his 2 cronies, small-town bullies who thrived on making others small. Sarah knelt on the ground, clutching her books to her chest, tears tracking down her cheeks as Tommy towered over her, mocking the stutter that made her stumble over words. "Say it again, freak," Tommy jeered. "What's the matter?"
"Cat got your tongue?"
he taunted. Ellie's blood went cold, then hot. She stepped into the circle of boys, her long shadow slanting across the sun-baked soil. The 3 of them stopped mid-leer, their chuckles dying on their tongues. Ellie's presence felt like a storm front, silent, heavy, full of coming ruin. "Back away from my sister," she said, voice low and controlled, colder than a winter wind. Tommy smirked. He appraised her as one might a stray farmhand, slender, hair tied into a messy ponytail, boots scuffed from work. To him she was only another country girl. He had no clue who he faced, or what. Tommy snarled, advancing with swagger. "Gonna cry like your weird twin?" Ellie's jaw tightened. For a blink, she was no longer in Tennessee but in distant battlefields, deserts and jungles where hesitation cost lives. Her training took over. Her body moved before thought. She grabbed Tommy's wrist, twisted it behind him, and dropped him to his knees in one precise motion. He howled, face warped by sudden pain. The others lunged, but Ellie moved like a blur, a sidestep, an elbow to a rib, a knee to a gut. Seconds later, they sprawled in dirt, gasping. Ellie waited until they could move again, slowly. Sarah scrambled upright, eyes wide and frantic. Ellie stopped. "They're not worth it," she cried. Ellie didn't listen. She crouched until her face was inches from Tommy's, cold fury quieting every other sound. "You touch my sister again," she whispered, "and I'll bury you so deep they'll need a map to find you." It wasn't an idle threat, but a vow born from fighting men far deadlier than this coward. Tommy's swagger shattered in an instant. He nodded frantically, eyes darting toward his friend still writhing in the dirt. Ellie rose and helped Sarah up, gently brushing dust from her jacket. "Come on," she murmured. "Let's go home." But deep down, Ellie knew it wasn't over. Tommy Grayson wasn't the kind to swallow humiliation quietly, not when he was the son of Sheriff Grayson, the man who ruled Willow Creek like it was his own kingdom. By sundown, word of the fight had spread like wildfire, twisted into a tale that painted Ellie as the villain, an unhinged outsider who'd assaulted 3 harmless boys. At the sheriff's office, Tommy played the part of the wounded victim, his bruised ego begging for revenge. Back at the Harper farm, Ellie sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. Across from her, Sarah's taped glasses sat crooked on her pale face. Their parents exchanged uneasy glances, worry etched deep into their tired eyes. "Ellie," her father began, voice rough as gravel, "you can't go picking fights with the sheriff's boy. This ain't the army. This is home." Ellie's jaw clenched. "They hurt Sarah, Dad. I wasn't about to just stand there." Sarah reached across the table, voice trembling. "I'm okay, Ellie, really, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Ellie cut in, her tone sharp, unyielding. "No one touches you. No one." The next morning, the crunch of tires on gravel broke the quiet. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up the drive, red and blue lights flashing against the farmhouse walls. Sheriff Grayson stepped out, his badge gleaming, face hard as carved stone. Behind him, Tommy smirked smugly, his arm hanging in a sling that looked more theatrical than necessary. The sheriff didn't waste words. "Ellie Harper," he barked, "you're under arrest for assault." The room seemed to shrink. Sarah gasped. Their mother clutched her husband's arm. But Ellie didn't so much as blink. She rose slowly, every movement calm and deliberate. "You sure you want to do this, Sheriff?" she asked, her voice steady, carrying a quiet warning that made him hesitate. For just a heartbeat. But Grayson wasn't a man who tolerated defiance. He snapped the cuffs on her wrists and recited her rights as he led her toward the cruiser. From porches and dirt roads, townsfolk watched, whispering behind cupped hands. The Harper girl had crossed the Graysons, and no one did that without paying the price. At the station, Ellie sat in the holding cell, back straight, gaze fixed on the wall. Fear had no place here. She'd faced worse in enemy prisons, survived firefights in the dark. This was nothing. But her thoughts weren't on herself, they were on Sarah. On the terror in her sister's eyes. On the town that had turned against them. And on the promise that if anyone came for her family again, Ellie Harper, Viper, wouldn't be so merciful next time. Ellie knew Tommy wouldn't stop. Bullies never did. And Sheriff Grayson? He was just an older, meaner version of his son, hiding his cruelty behind a badge. But what Ellie didn't realize was that Tommy had a plan of his own. He'd heard the whispers about her, that she wasn't just some farm girl, though he didn't believe them. Still, curiosity mixed with spite was a dangerous thing. That night, under a pale moon, Tommy and his buddies crept into the Harper's barn. They rummaged through the shadows until they found something hidden behind hay bales. Ellie's old duffel bag, left from her last deployment. Inside were relics of a life she'd tried to bury. A combat knife with a worn grip, a burner phone, a notebook filled with coded scribbles. Tommy's eyes lit up. He didn't understand what he'd stumbled onto, but he knew one thing. It was trouble. And it was his new weapon. While Tommy plotted, Ellie's past was already stirring awake, hundreds of miles away. In a dim office in Virginia, a man in a dark suit glared at a glowing monitor. Colonel James Rohr, Ellie's former handler at Delta Force, had just received a classified alert. Viper had resurfaced in a small Tennessee town, arrested after a civilian altercation. Rohr muttered a curse. Ellie was supposed to be gone, wiped from every record, buried under layers of clearance. If enemies she'd made during her covert missions learned she was alive, the fallout would be disastrous. He snatched up the phone. "Get me a team to Willow Creek. Now." Back home, Ellie was released on bail. Her parents had mortgaged a piece of their farm to bring her home. When she walked in, Sarah was waiting, her face streaked with tears. "They're saying you're dangerous, Ellie," Sarah whispered. "They're saying you're not who you say you are." Ellie dropped to one knee, meeting her sister's frightened gaze. Her voice was soft but unshakable. I'm your sister Sarah, that's who I am. And I won't let anyone hurt you, not Tommy, not his father, not anyone. But the danger was already far beyond Willow Creek. Tommy, drunk on his own arrogance, had shown the contents of the duffel bag to his cousin, a petty thug with ties to a militia in the nearby hills. The cousin knew exactly what he was looking at. Elite military gear, high level, restricted. He made a call. The information traveled fast, until it reached a name whispered in dark corners. Victor Krall. Once a powerful arms dealer, Krall had rotted in a black site prison after Viper dismantled his network in Afghanistan. 6 months ago he escaped, and the moment he heard that his ghost of an enemy was alive and in Tennessee, a smile curved across his scarred face. The next morning, Willow Creek woke to chaos. A black SUV tore through the quiet streets, its engine roaring like thunder, carrying vengeance straight to Ellie Harper's door. The black SUV tore through Willow Creek's main road, carrying Victor Krall and his squad of hardened mercenaries, men who had long forgotten what mercy meant. They weren't there for Tommy or the sheriff. They were there for one target only, Ellie Harper, Viper. Within minutes, the quiet town square erupted into chaos. Krall's men flooded the streets, shouting demands, kicking down doors, waving rifles. The terrified townsfolk, caught off guard, pointed trembling fingers toward the Harper farm. Sheriff Grayson tried to stand his ground, barking orders, but a single gunshot from Krall's lieutenant dropped him where he stood. The king of Willow Creek was gone in an instant. Out at the farm, Ellie was in the barn when she heard the engines approach. Low, growling, too many to count. Her instincts screamed one word: ambush. She sprinted to the house, grabbed Sarah, and pushed her parents toward the storm cellar. "Stay down no matter what," she ordered, her voice steady despite the rising dread. Then she climbed into the attic and opened a hidden compartment she'd sworn she'd never need again. Inside lay the tools of her other life: a sidearm, a rifle, a few grenades, and a combat knife that had seen too many battlefields. She wasn't just Ellie Harper anymore. She was Viper. Outside, boots crunched over gravel as Krall's men spread out surrounding the property. Krall stepped forward, his voice booming across the field. "Viper! Come out now or we burn this place to the ground." Ellie crouched by the attic window, eyes scanning the dark. She could take a few of them, maybe all, but not without risking Sarah and her parents. She needed time. That's when she saw headlights streaking toward the farm from the highway. Roar's team. Delta Force. They were coming fast, but not fast enough. What followed was nothing short of a tactical masterpiece. Ellie melted into the darkness, moving with the silent precision of a ghost. One mercenary fell to a knife in the throat, another to a chokehold in the shadows. She turned a tractor into a decoy bomb, the explosion lighting up the night sky and scattering Krall's men like frightened dogs. The farm became a war zone, fire licking at the sky, smoke rolling over the fields. In the cellar, Sarah clung to her mother's hand, whispering prayers through her tears. Krall wasn't fooled for long. He'd fought Viper before and knew her methods. He found her in the barn, gun aimed at her head. "You cost me everything," he hissed. "Now it's your turn." Ellie's eyes flicked upward, to the rope she'd rigged moments earlier. "You talk too much," she said. With a swift pull, the trap triggered. A wooden beam swung down, slamming into Krall's shoulder and sending him stumbling. Ellie lunged, wrenching the gun away, and the two clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat. She fought with instinct, not rage, and every move honed by years of survival. In the end, Krall hit the dirt defeated, his revenge crushed under her boot. When Roar's team arrived, the smoke had thinned and silence hung heavy over the farm. The mercenaries were dead or cuffed, and Ellie stood amid the wreckage, blood on her knuckles, chest heaving. Roar approached her, face set with grim respect. "You can't stay here. Viper, not after this." Ellie looked toward the farmhouse, where Sarah stood in the doorway, eyes wide with awe and fear. "I know," Ellie whispered, "but I had to protect her. Willow Creek would never be the same." The Graysons' hold on the town shattered, Tommy's lies exposed. People whispered about the Harper girl who'd saved them, though none knew the truth, that their savior was a ghost of Delta Force. By the time dawn broke, Ellie was gone again. She left behind a single letter for her sister. "You're stronger than you know. Live your life. I'll always be watching." As the first light touched the field, Sarah stood alone, clutching the letter to her chest, heart heavy but proud. Her sister wasn't just a soldier. She was a legend. Hey, thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If Ellie and Sarah's story hit you like it did me, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels.